A mother dog and 7 puppies cry for help on the roof after a heavy rain, all flooded. The rain began gently, a soft patter on the rooftops of Willow Creek, a quaint town nestled amidst the rolling hills of Iowa. The residents, accustomed to the capricious Midwest weather, initially paid little heed. But as the hours passed, the rain intensified, transforming from a soothing melody into a relentless drumbeat against the window panes. The sky, once a cheerful blue, darkened into an ominous gray, mirroring the growing anxiety in the hearts of the townsfolk. By midday, the streets, usually bustling with activity, were deserted. Shopkeepers hurriedly boarded up their windows, while families huddled indoors, listening to the rising crescendo of the storm. The Willow Creek, a normally placid river meandering through the heart of the town, began to swell, its gentle murmur morphing into a menacing roar. On the outskirts of town, nestled amidst a grove of ancient oak trees, stood a modest farmhouse, home to Maggie, a gentle Labrador retriever, and her 5 rambunctious puppies. Maggie, a loyal companion to the elderly farmer, John, had recently given birth to her first litter, a source of endless joy and amusement in the otherwise quiet farmhouse. As the rain hammered against the roof and the wind howled through the trees, Maggie's maternal instincts kicked in. She gathered her pups, their soft fur still damp from a playful romp in the morning dew, and ushered them into the safety of the barn. The familiar scent of hay and the comforting presence of her pups provided a momentary sense of security amidst the growing chaos outside. But the storm, relentless in its fury, showed no signs of abating. The Willow Creek, now a raging torrent, breached its banks, inundating the surrounding fields and creeping ominously towards the farmhouse. John, his weathered face etched with worry, watched helplessly as the floodwaters encroached upon his property, his heart sinking with each passing moment. Maggie, sensing John's distress, whined softly, nudging his hand with her wet nose. He knelt down, stroking her soft fur, his voice thick with emotion. "Don't you worry, girl," he reassured her. "We'll be all right." But even as he spoke, doubt gnawed at his heart. He knew they were in grave danger. As dusk descended, casting an eerie glow over the flooded landscape, the water reached the farmhouse, seeping through the cracks in the floorboards. John, realizing the gravity of the situation, scooped up the puppies, one by one, and placed them in a large wicker basket. Maggie, her eyes wide with fear, watched intently, her tail tucked between her legs. "Come on, Maggie," John urged, his voice strained. "We need to get to higher ground." He led her towards the attic, the only part of the house still above water. But as they ascended the creaking stairs, a loud crack echoed through the house, followed by a sickening groan. The foundation, weakened by the relentless onslaught of the floodwaters, was giving way. John's heart pounded in his chest. He knew they had to get out and fast. He pushed open the attic window, the cold rain instantly drenching his face. The roof, thankfully, was still above water, offering a precarious refuge. He hoisted the basket of puppies onto the roof, then turned to help Maggie. But before he could reach her, the floor beneath them gave way, plunging them into the swirling floodwaters. Maggie instinctively swam towards the surface, gasping for air. She spotted John clinging to a piece of debris, his face pale and drawn. With a surge of adrenaline, she swam towards him, her powerful strokes cutting through the churning water. She reached him just as his grip loosened, and with a desperate lunge, she managed to pull him towards the roof. Exhausted but relieved, they lay on the rain-soaked shingles, the basket of whimpering puppies nestled between them. The farmhouse, their once safe haven, was now submerged, a silent testament to the destructive power of nature. They were stranded, alone, with the floodwaters rising steadily around them. As the night wore on, the rain continued unabated. Maggie, her fur plastered to her body, shivered uncontrollably, her maternal instincts battling against the cold and the fear. She huddled close to her pups, licking their wet fur, trying to keep them warm. John, his body racked with chills, held them close, whispering words of comfort. But their situation was growing increasingly desperate. The water level continued to rise, threatening to engulf the roof. Maggie, her anxiety mounting, barked frantically, her cries echoing through the desolate landscape. John, his strength waning, closed his eyes, a silent prayer escaping his lips. Just when all hope seemed lost, a faint sound reached their ears, the chugging of a motor cutting through the rain. A small rescue boat, its beacon light piercing the darkness, was navigating the treacherous floodwaters, its occupants scanning the submerged houses for survivors. Maggie, her senses heightened by desperation, spotted the boat first. She barked with renewed vigor, her cries a beacon of hope in the desolate night. The rescuers, their faces grim but determined, turned their boat towards the sound, their hearts pounding with anticipation. As the boat approached, Maggie's barks grew louder, her tail wagging weakly despite her exhaustion. John, his spirits lifted by the sight of the rescuers, managed a feeble wave. The rescuers, their faces etched with relief, maneuvered the boat closer to the roof, their eyes widening at the sight of the stranded family. "Hold on!" one of the rescuers shouted, his voice barely audible above the roar of the floodwaters. "We're coming to get you." Maggie, her heart filled with a mixture of fear and hope, watched as the rescuers reached out, their strong arms offering a lifeline in the face of despair. One by one, they lifted the puppies into the boat, their whimpers turning into soft whimpers of relief. Then it was Maggie's turn. She hesitated for a moment, her protective instincts urging her to stay with John. But the rescuer, sensing her reluctance, gently coaxed her, his voice soothing and reassuring. "It's okay, girl," he said. "Your pups need you." With a final glance at John, Maggie stepped into the boat, her eyes fixed on her pups, their small bodies huddled together for warmth. The boat pulled away from the roof, leaving John behind, his fate uncertain. Maggie, her heart heavy with worry, watched as the farmhouse disappeared into the darkness, her mind filled with a mixture of gratitude and despair. The journey to safety was perilous, the boat buffeted by the strong currents and debris-filled water. But the rescuers, their skills honed by years of experience, navigated the treacherous waters with unwavering determination. Maggie, her body trembling with exhaustion, kept her eyes fixed on her pups, their presence a source of comfort amidst the chaos. After what seemed like an eternity, the boat reached higher ground, a small patch of land still untouched by the floodwaters. Maggie and her pups were helped ashore, their paws sinking into the soft mud. They were safe for now, but their ordeal was far from over. They had lost their home, their familiar surroundings, and perhaps even John, their beloved companion. As Maggie watched the floodwaters recede, leaving behind a trail of devastation, she couldn't help but wonder what the future held for her and her pups. But amidst the uncertainty, one thing was clear. They had survived, and they had each other. And in that moment, that was enough. The rescue boat, its hull battered and its occupants weary, finally reached the makeshift shelter set up on the higher ground of Willow Creek's town square. The once vibrant heart of the community was now a scene of organized chaos, a refuge for those displaced by the relentless flood. Tents lined the perimeter, housing families huddled together, their faces etched with a mixture of relief and despair. Volunteers scurried about, distributing blankets, food, and words of comfort. Maggie, her paws still trembling from the ordeal, stepped onto the dry ground, her pups trailing behind her. The sight of so many unfamiliar faces and the cacophony of sounds overwhelmed her. She instinctively gathered her pups closer, her maternal instincts heightened by the unfamiliar surroundings. A young woman, her face beaming with warmth, approached Maggie and her pups. "Oh, you poor things," she cooed, her voice gentle and reassuring. "You must be exhausted and scared." She knelt down, offering Maggie a bowl of water and a plate of food. Maggie, hesitant at first, cautiously lapped at the water, her thirst overriding her fear. The woman, noticing Maggie's apprehension, introduced herself. "My name is Sarah," she said, her voice soothing. "I'm a volunteer here at the shelter. We're going to take good care of you and your pups." Sarah led Maggie and her pups to a quiet corner of the shelter, a small tent designated for animal evacuees. The tent was warm and dry, a welcome respite from the cold and dampness of the flood. Maggie, her body finally relaxing, curled up on a soft blanket, her pups snuggled close to her. As the night wore on, the shelter buzzed with activity. Volunteers tended to the needs of the evacuees, offering medical assistance, emotional support, and a glimmer of hope in the face of devastation. Maggie, her senses still heightened, listened to the murmurs of conversations, the cries of children, and the occasional bark of a fellow canine evacuee. Despite the warmth and safety of the shelter, Maggie couldn't shake off the feeling of unease. The trauma of the flood, the loss of her home, and the uncertainty of the future weighed heavily on her heart. She worried about John, her beloved companion, left behind in the flooded farmhouse. She wondered if he had survived, if he was safe, if he would ever return. Her pups, oblivious to their mother's anxieties, slept soundly, their soft snores filling the tent. Maggie watched them, their innocence a stark contrast to the turmoil in her own heart. She licked their fur, her maternal love a beacon of hope in the darkness. The next morning, Sarah returned to check on Maggie and her pups. She brought them fresh food and water, and a warm smile that momentarily eased Maggie's worries. "How are you feeling today?" Sarah asked, her voice filled with concern. Maggie, unable to express her anxieties in words, simply wagged her tail weakly, her eyes conveying a mixture of gratitude and apprehension. Sarah, sensing Maggie's unspoken worries, knelt down, stroking her fur gently. "I know you're scared," Sarah said softly, "but you're safe now. We're going to do everything we can to find you a new home, a place where you and your pups can start over." Maggie, comforted by Sarah's words, licked her hand, a silent gesture of trust and appreciation. Sarah, her heart touched by Maggie's loyalty, vowed to do everything in her power to help the stranded family. Later that day, a veterinarian arrived at the shelter, offering his services to the animal evacuees. He examined Maggie and her pups, ensuring they were healthy and free from injuries. He gave them a clean bill of health, much to Sarah's relief. "They're strong and resilient," the vet assured Sarah. "They'll bounce back from this, with a little love and care." Sarah nodded, her heart filled with hope. She knew finding a new home for Maggie and her pups wouldn't be easy, but she was determined to give them a chance at a happy ending. She posted their pictures on the shelter's website, hoping to attract potential adopters. Days turned into weeks, and Maggie and her pups remained at the shelter. They gradually adjusted to their new routine, finding comfort in the familiar faces of the volunteers and the companionship of their fellow canine evacuees. Maggie, though still haunted by the memories of the flood, started to regain her playful spirit, her pups' infectious energy lifting her spirits. One afternoon, a new face appeared at the shelter, an elderly man with kind eyes and a gentle demeanor. He introduced himself as George, a widower who had recently lost his beloved dog. He had heard about Maggie and her pups, and his heart ached for their plight. George spent hours with Maggie and her pups, playing with them, feeding them, and simply enjoying their company. Maggie, drawn to his gentle nature and quiet strength, felt a sense of comfort in his presence. She sensed that this man, with his sad eyes and warm smile, might be the answer to her prayers. As the sun set, casting long shadows across the shelter, George made a decision. He approached Sarah, his voice filled with emotion. "I'd like to adopt Maggie and her pups," he said, his eyes twinkling with hope. "I think they might be just what I need to fill the void in my life." Sarah, her heart swelling with joy, embraced George, tears of gratitude streaming down her face. She knew she had found the perfect home for Maggie and her pups, a place where they could finally heal and start anew. The transition from the bustling shelter to the quiet solitude of George's home was a stark one for Maggie and her pups. George, a retired school teacher with a kind heart and a gentle touch, lived in a cozy cottage on the outskirts of Willow Creek, surrounded by a sprawling garden that had once been his pride and joy. The flood had spared his home, but the garden, his sanctuary, lay in ruins, a casualty of the raging waters. Maggie, her senses still attuned to the subtle nuances of human emotion, sensed George's sadness. She watched him wander through the ravaged garden. His shoulders slumped, his eyes filled with a deep longing. She knew, instinctively, that this man, like her, was grieving a loss that ran deeper than the physical destruction around them. The puppies, oblivious to the undercurrent of sadness, explored their new surroundings with unbridled enthusiasm. They chased butterflies through the overgrown grass, tumbled over each other in playful wrestling matches, and chewed on anything they could get their teeth on, much to George's amusement. Maggie, her maternal instincts always on high alert, kept a watchful eye on her pups, her heart swelling with pride at their resilience. They had survived the flood, the shelter, and the upheaval of relocation. They were thriving, their playful spirit a testament to the enduring power of innocence. George, initially hesitant in his new role as a caregiver, gradually warmed up to the pups' infectious energy. He found himself laughing again, his heart lighter than it had been in months. He spent hours playing with them, teaching them basic commands and reveling in their unconditional love. Maggie, witnessing the transformation in George, felt a sense of peace settle over her. She saw in him a kindred spirit, a gentle soul who understood the depths of loss and the healing power of companionship. She nuzzled his hand, her soft brown eyes conveying a silent gratitude. As the days turned into weeks, a routine settled over the cottage. George, with the help of a few kind neighbors, restored the garden, planting new seedlings and nurturing them with tender care. The garden, once a symbol of loss, became a symbol of hope, a testament to the resilience of life. Maggie, her anxieties gradually fading, embraced her new role as protector and companion. She accompanied George on his daily walks, her tail wagging happily as she explored the surrounding countryside. She kept a watchful eye on the pups, ensuring their safety and guiding their playful antics. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the garden, George sat on the porch, Maggie curled up at his feet. He watched the pups frolic in the grass, their laughter echoing through the quiet evening. A smile spread across his face, a genuine smile that reached his eyes. "Thank you, Maggie," he whispered, stroking her soft fur. "Thank you for bringing joy back into my life." Maggie, her heart filled with contentment, licked his hand, her silent response conveying a depth of understanding that transcended words. She knew in that moment that she had found her purpose, her place in the world. She was home, but even as peace and happiness settled over the cottage, a shadow lingered in the depths of Maggie's heart. The memory of the flood, the loss of her old home, and the uncertainty of John's fate continued to haunt her. She often found herself gazing towards the town, her ears perked, hoping for a sign, a sound, anything that would indicate his survival. One day, as George and Maggie were returning from their daily walk, they noticed a commotion in the town square. A crowd had gathered around a newly erected bulletin board, their faces a mixture of excitement and relief. George, curious, approached the board, his eyes scanning the notices. Suddenly, he stopped, his breath catching in his throat. Picture, faded and water-damaged, but unmistakably familiar, stared back at him. It was John, his weathered face beaming a wide smile, his arms slung around Maggie's shoulders. The caption below read, "John Smith, found safe and sound." Maggie, sensing George's sudden stillness, followed his gaze. Her heart leaped in her chest, a wave of relief washing over her. John was alive. He was safe. A bark of joy escaped her lips, echoing through the square. George, his eyes filled with tears, knelt down, embracing Maggie tightly. "He's alive, Maggie," he whispered, his voice choked with emotion. "John is alive." Maggie, her tail wagging furiously, licked his face, her joy overflowing. The shadow that had lingered in her heart lifted, replaced by a lightness she hadn't felt since the day of the flood. Her family, both human and canine, was complete. The news of John's survival spread through the town like wildfire, bringing a renewed sense of hope to the flood-stricken community. People gathered in the square, sharing stories of resilience, offering support, and celebrating the enduring power of the human spirit. Maggie, her pups frolicking at her feet, watched the scene unfold, her heart filled with gratitude. She had survived the flood, found a new home, and now, miraculously, reunited with her beloved John. Life, she realized, was full of unexpected twists and turns, but even in the darkest of times, hope, like a resilient seedling, could find a way to bloom. The reunion with John was a joyous occasion, a beacon of light amidst the lingering shadows of the flood. John, having been rescued from a neighboring farm where he had managed to swim, was overwhelmed with relief at finding Maggie and his pups safe and sound. Tears streamed down his weathered face as he embraced Maggie, his voice thick with emotion. "Maggie, my girl," he choked out. "I thought I'd lost you." Maggie, her tail wagging so hard her whole body wiggled, licked his face, her joy echoing his own. The pups, sensing the heightened emotions, jumped and barked excitedly, adding to the cacophony of joyful reunion. George, witnessing the depth of their bond, stepped back, a bittersweet feeling tugging at his heart. He had grown fond of Maggie and her pups, their presence filling a void he hadn't realized existed. But he knew that they belonged with John, that their bond was something truly special. "John," George said, his voice warm and sincere, "it seems your family is complete again." John, turning to face George, his eyes filled with gratitude, extended his hand. "Thank you, George," he said, his voice rough but sincere. "Thank you for taking care of them. I don't know what I would have done without you." George, grasping John's hand, smiled. "It was my pleasure, John. They brought joy back into my life, just when I needed it most." The decision was made then and there. Maggie and her pups would return to the farm with John. George, though saddened by their departure, knew it was the right thing to do. He helped John gather their belongings, his heart heavy but his spirit light. The return to the farm was a bittersweet homecoming. The flood had left its mark, the once pristine fields now scarred and muddy. The farmhouse, though still standing, bore the scars of the raging waters. But amidst the devastation, there was a sense of renewal, a feeling of hope rising from the ashes. John, with renewed vigor, set about repairing the damage, his love for his land and his animals fueling his determination. Maggie, her pups scampering at her heels, explored the familiar territory, her nose twitching with the sense of home. The pups, oblivious to the past trauma, chased butterflies through the tall grass, their laughter echoing through the fields. Life on the farm resumed its rhythm, albeit with a newfound appreciation for the fragility of life and the strength of familial bonds. John, his heart filled with gratitude, cherished every moment with Maggie and her pups. He spent hours playing with them, training them, and simply enjoying their company. Maggie, her anxieties fully subsided, reveled in the familiar comforts of farm life. She resumed her duties as John's loyal companion, herding the sheep, chasing away pesky squirrels, and offering a comforting presence on lonely evenings. The pups, growing rapidly, became an integral part of the farm, their playful energy bringing a renewed sense of life to the once quiet fields. They learned to herd the sheep alongside Maggie, their clumsy attempts often ending in hilarious tumbles. They chased rabbits through the meadows, their barks echoing through the hills. They snuggled up to John on cold nights, their warmth a comforting reminder of the love that surrounded him. One evening, as the sun set, casting a golden hue over the farm, John sat on the porch, Maggie curled up at his feet, her pups nestled around them. He watched the fireflies dance in the twilight, their tiny lights twinkling like stars against the darkening sky. A sense of peace settled over him, a contentment he hadn't felt in years. "Maggie," he said softly, stroking her fur. "We're home." Maggie, her eyes reflecting the firefly's glow, nuzzled his hand, her silent response conveying a shared understanding, a shared love for the land, for each other, for the simple joys of life that had been tested but not broken by the flood. They were home, together, stronger than ever, their bond forged in the fires of adversity, their spirits renewed by the enduring power of love and loyalty. Spring arrived, painting the Iowa landscape in vibrant hues of green and gold. The floodwaters had long receded, leaving behind fertile soil and a renewed sense of hope. The farm, once scarred by the deluge, was now a picture of idyllic beauty, the fields bursting with life, the animals thriving under John's loving care. Maggie's pups, now almost a year old, were no longer the clumsy, playful bundles they once were. They had grown into strong, intelligent dogs, each with their own unique personality. Scout, the largest of the litter, was a gentle giant, his loyalty to John unwavering. Patches, with her distinctive black and white markings, was the most mischievous, always getting into scrapes and causing a ruckus. Rusty, the smallest and most timid, was John's shadow, following him everywhere he went. Life on the farm had settled into a comfortable routine, the days filled with chores, laughter, and the companionship of man and his best friend. But even as peace and contentment reigned, a shadow lingered in the depths of Maggie's heart. The trauma of the flood, though buried beneath layers of healing and happiness, had left its mark. One stormy night, the familiar sound of thunder rumbled through the valley, awakening Maggie from a deep sleep. Her heart pounded in her chest, her instincts screaming danger. She whimpered softly, her body trembling with a fear she couldn't quite understand. John, awakened by her distress, reached out, stroking her fur gently. "It's all right, Maggie," he soothed, his voice calm and reassuring. "Just a storm. We're safe here." But Maggie couldn't shake off the feeling of dread. The sound of the rain hammering against the roof, the howling wind, and the flashes of lightning brought back vivid memories of that fateful night, the night she almost lost everything. She whined again, her anxiety growing. She paced the floor restlessly, her eyes darting around the room, searching for an escape from the invisible threat. John, sensing her growing panic, tried to calm her, but his efforts were in vain. Suddenly, a loud clap of thunder shook the house, sending Maggie into a frenzy. She barked frantically, her body trembling uncontrollably. She ran to the door, scratching and whining, desperate to escape the confines of the house. John, his concern growing, realized that Maggie wasn't simply reacting to the storm. She was reliving the trauma of the flood, her instincts overwhelmed by the fear of losing her family again. He rose from the bed, his movements slow and deliberate. He approached Maggie, his voice soft and soothing. "Maggie, girl," he whispered. "It's okay. We're safe. I'm here." He opened the door, allowing Maggie to step out onto the porch. The rain was coming down in sheets, the wind whipping through the trees. But Maggie, instead of running, stood still, her body tense, her eyes fixed on the raging storm. John stood beside her, his presence a silent comfort. He didn't try to force her back inside. He knew she needed to face her fears, to confront the ghosts of the past. Slowly, Maggie began to relax. She took a deep breath, the scent of rain and wet earth filling her nostrils. She looked up at John, her eyes filled with trust and gratitude. He was there, her anchor, her protector. As the storm raged around them, John held Maggie close, his warmth and strength a reassuring presence. He spoke softly to her, reminding her of their bond, of their shared history, of the love that had seen them through the darkest of times. Gradually, Maggie's fear subsided. She leaned into John, her body finally relaxing. The storm, though still fierce, no longer held the same terror. She was safe, surrounded by love, her past trauma slowly fading into the background. As the first rays of dawn broke through the storm clouds, painting the sky in hues of pink and orange, Maggie looked up at John, her eyes filled with a newfound peace. The storm had passed, both literally and figuratively. She had faced her fears, confronted her demons, and emerged stronger than ever. The flood, though a devastating event, had ultimately brought them closer, forging an unbreakable bond between man and his best friend. They had survived the worst that nature could throw at them, and they had emerged from the depths of despair with a renewed appreciation for life, for love, and for the enduring power of loyalty. The storm, though a harrowing experience for Maggie, had an unexpected silver lining. It brought to light the lingering effects of the flood on her psyche, a vulnerability John hadn't fully grasped. He realized that despite her outward resilience, Maggie still carried the scars of that traumatic night. He vowed to do everything in his power to help her heal completely. John, always a private man, decided to reach out to the community for support. He knew that others in Willow Creek had also been affected by the flood, and he hoped that sharing their experiences might help both Maggie and himself. He started by attending a town hall meeting organized by the local church. The meeting was attended by a diverse group of residents, all sharing stories of loss, resilience, and the challenges of rebuilding their lives. John listened intently, his heart aching for his neighbors, but also finding solace in their shared experiences. He spoke about Maggie's struggles, his voice raw with emotion. He described her panic during the storm, her lingering fear of water, and her occasional nightmares. The room fell silent, the attendees listening with empathy and understanding. After John finished speaking, a woman in the back of the room raised her hand. "My name is Emily," she said, her voice soft but steady. "I'm a dog trainer, and I specialize in helping animals overcome trauma. I think I might be able to help Maggie." John's heart leaped with hope. He approached Emily after the meeting, eager to learn more about her methods. Emily, a kind woman with a gentle demeanor, explained that she used a combination of positive reinforcement, desensitization, and counterconditioning to help dogs overcome their fears. "It's a gradual process," she explained, "but with patience and consistency, Maggie can learn to associate positive experiences with the things that trigger her anxiety." John, his spirits lifted, readily agreed to work with Emily. He started by taking Maggie to Emily's training facility, a spacious outdoor area with a variety of obstacles and challenges designed to build confidence and trust. Emily introduced Maggie to the facility gradually, allowing her to explore at her own pace. She used positive reinforcement, rewarding Maggie with treats and praise for every small step forward. She also introduced Maggie to other dogs, encouraging her to interact and play, helping her regain her social confidence. John, diligently following Emily's instructions, continued the training at home. He took Maggie on regular walks, exposing her to different environments and situations. He played games with her, encouraging her to focus on positive experiences. He even introduced her to water gradually, starting with shallow puddles and gradually progressing to deeper water. Maggie, responding to John's patience and Emily's expertise, slowly began to overcome her fears. She started to enjoy her walks again, her tail wagging happily as she explored the countryside. She played fetch with John, her enthusiasm returning with each successful retrieve. She even ventured into the creek, her initial hesitation replaced by a cautious curiosity. The progress wasn't always linear. There were days when Maggie's anxiety would resurface, triggered by a sudden noise or a change in the weather. But John, with Emily's guidance, remained patient and supportive, offering Maggie the reassurance she needed to overcome her setbacks. As the weeks turned into months, Maggie's transformation was remarkable. She was no longer the timid, fearful dog who had cowered during the storm. She was confident, playful, and full of life, her spirit renewed by the love and support of her human and canine companions. John, witnessing Maggie's progress, felt a surge of pride and gratitude. He had faced his own challenges in the aftermath of the flood, the loss of his wife still a fresh wound in his heart. But through Maggie's journey, He had found a renewed sense of purpose, a reason to keep moving forward. He realized that the flood, though a devastating event, had also brought unexpected blessings. It had strengthened his bond with Maggie, introduced him to Emily and the wider community, and opened his heart to new possibilities. He was no longer the isolated farmer, grieving in solitude. He was part of a community, a network of support and shared experiences, all bound together by the threads of resilience and hope. The bond between John and Emily deepened as they worked together to help Maggie heal. Their shared passion for animals, coupled with their understanding of the emotional scars left by the flood, created a connection that transcended their initial professional relationship. Emily, a single mother with a young daughter named Lily, often brought Lily to the training sessions. Lily, a bright and energetic child with a love for animals, quickly formed a bond with Maggie and her pups. She would spend hours playing with them, her laughter echoing through the training facility. Maggie, drawn to Lily's innocence and boundless energy, seemed to sense the child's pure heart. She would gently nudge Lily with her nose, encouraging her to throw a ball or join in a game of chase. The pups, equally smitten with Lily, would tumble over each other in their eagerness to play with their new friend. John, watching the interactions between Lily and the dogs, felt his heart swell with warmth. He saw in Lily a reflection of his own grandchildren, who lived far away and whom he missed dearly. He found himself looking forward to Emily and Lily's visits, their presence bringing a vibrancy to the farm that had been missing since his wife's passing. One sunny afternoon, after a particularly successful training session, Emily and Lily stayed for a picnic lunch in the garden. John, having rediscovered his joy in gardening, had transformed the once ravaged space into a haven of colorful blooms and fragrant herbs. As they sat on the checkered blanket, enjoying the homemade sandwiches and lemonade, John found himself sharing stories of his life on the farm, his childhood memories, and his love for his late wife. Emily listened intently, her kind eyes reflecting a deep understanding. Lily, captivated by John's stories, peppered him with questions about the animals, the crops, and the history of the farm. John, delighted by her curiosity, answered her questions with patience and enthusiasm, his face lit up with a joy he hadn't felt in years. As the afternoon wore on, a comfortable silence settled over them, punctuated only by the chirping of birds and the gentle rustling of leaves. John, watching Emily and Lily interact with the dogs, felt a sense of contentment he hadn't experienced since the flood. He realized that Emily, with her gentle spirit and compassionate heart, had become more than just a dog trainer. She was a friend, a confidant, someone with whom he could share his joys and sorrows. And Lily, with her infectious laughter and boundless energy, had brought a spark of joy back into his life. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the garden, Emily and Lily prepared to leave. John, reluctant to see them go, walked them to their car, his heart filled with a warmth he couldn't quite explain. "Thank you for today, John," Emily said, her voice soft and sincere. "It was lovely. The pleasure was all mine," John replied, his eyes meeting hers. "I hope you'll come again soon." Lily, her arms wrapped around Maggie's neck, chimed in, "Can we come back tomorrow, Grandpa John?" John chuckled, his heart melting at the affectionate nickname. "Of course, Lily," he said. "You're always welcome here." As Emily and Lily drove away, John stood at the gate, watching them disappear down the dusty road. He felt a lightness in his step, a sense of hope he hadn't felt in years. The flood, though a devastating event, had opened his heart to new possibilities, new connections, and a renewed appreciation for the simple joys of life. He turned back towards the house, Maggie and her pups trotting happily beside him. The farm, once a symbol of loss and loneliness, was now filled with laughter, companionship, and the promise of a brighter future. And in the depths of his heart, a new feeling was blossoming, a feeling that had been dormant for far too long, the feeling of love. Summer descended upon Willow Creek, bringing with it long sun-drenched days and warm, starlit nights. The farm thrived under the combined care of John and Maggie, the fields bursting with golden wheat, the orchard laden with ripe fruit, and the animals content in their well-tended pastures. Maggie's pups, now fully grown, were invaluable helpers on the farm. Scout, with his strength and gentle nature, assisted John with herding the sheep, his deep bark keeping the flock in line. Patches, ever the mischievous one, patrolled the boundaries of the property, chasing away any unwelcome critters with her fierce bark and playful nips. Rusty, John's constant shadow, followed him everywhere, his presence a comforting reminder of the love and loyalty that surrounded him. Emily and Lily continued to be frequent visitors to the farm, their presence bringing a vibrancy that filled the once quiet spaces with laughter and joy. Lily, now a fixture in the farm's daily life, had become an honorary granddaughter to John, her boundless energy and infectious enthusiasm a constant source of amusement. She spent her days exploring the fields with the dogs, climbing trees in the orchard, and helping John with his chores, her small hands eagerly assisting with tasks that were far beyond her years. She had a natural affinity for animals, her gentle touch and soothing voice calming even the most skittish of creatures. Emily, watching the blossoming bond between Lily and John, felt her heart swell with warmth. She saw in John a father figure, a source of stability and wisdom that had been missing in her own life. And in Lily's eyes, she saw a reflection of the joy and innocence that had been rekindled in John's heart. Their shared experiences, their laughter, and their quiet moments of companionship created a tapestry of connection that wove its way through the fabric of their lives. John, once a solitary figure, now found himself surrounded by love and laughter, his heart opening to the possibility of a new chapter in his life. One warm evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, John and Emily sat on the porch, sipping lemonade and watching Lily play with the dogs in the fading light. A comfortable silence settled between them, a testament to the unspoken understanding that had developed over the months. "You know," John said, his voice soft and thoughtful, "I never thought I'd find happiness again after losing Martha." Emily, her hand resting gently on his, nodded in understanding. "Grief is a long road, John," she said, her voice gentle and reassuring. "But it's not a road you have to travel alone." John, his eyes meeting hers, felt a warmth spread through his chest. He reached for her hand, his fingers intertwining with hers. "Thank you, Emily," he whispered, his voice filled with gratitude. "For everything." Emily, her heart filled with a tenderness she hadn't felt in years, squeezed his hand gently. "Thank you, John," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper, "for letting us into your life." In that moment, under the soft glow of the twilight sky, a spark ignited, a connection that transcended friendship, a love born from shared experiences, mutual respect, and the healing power of companionship. The future, once shrouded in uncertainty, now held the promise of a new beginning, a chapter filled with love, laughter, and the enduring strength of human connection. The summer days melted into the crisp air of autumn, painting the leaves in fiery hues of red, orange, and gold. The harvest was bountiful, a testament to John's dedication and the fertile land renewed by the flood. The farm, once a place of solitude and sorrow, now echoed with the sounds of laughter, the playful barks of dogs, and the gentle murmur of shared conversations. John, his heart rejuvenated by the love and companionship of Emily and Lily, embraced his new chapter with a zest for life he hadn't felt in years. He spent his days working alongside Emily in the garden, their shared passion for nurturing life blossoming into a deep and abiding love. Lily, now a permanent fixture in their lives, thrived in the loving environment of the farm. She blossomed under John's guidance, learning the rhythms of nature, the value of hard work, and the importance of caring for all living creatures. Maggie, her initial anxieties long forgotten, reveled in the harmony that surrounded her. She watched over Lily with a maternal protectiveness, her gentle presence a constant source of comfort and reassurance. Her pups, now mature and responsible members of the farm family, continued to assist with the daily chores, their loyalty and affection a testament to the enduring bond they shared with John and Lily. One crisp autumn evening, as the family gathered around the fireplace, the crackling flames casting dancing shadows on the walls, John felt a sense of peace settle over him. He looked at Emily, her face illuminated by the firelight, her eyes sparkling with love and contentment. He reached for her hand, his fingers intertwining with hers. "Emily," he said, his voice soft and sincere, "I never thought I'd find love again, but you've brought a light back into my life that I thought was extinguished forever." Emily, her heart overflowing with love, squeezed his hand gently. "John," she replied, her voice filled with emotion, "you've opened your heart and home to us, and we've found a happiness here that we never thought possible." Lily, nestled between them, looked up at John with adoring eyes. "Grandpa John," she said, her voice filled with childish innocence, "I love you and Grandma Emily." John, his eyes brimming with tears, pulled Lily into a warm embrace. "We love you too, Lily Bug," he whispered, his heart overflowing with gratitude for the unexpected blessings that had entered his life. In that moment, surrounded by the warmth of the fire and the love of his newfound family, John felt a profound sense of healing. The wounds of the past, the grief and loneliness that had haunted him for so long, finally began to fade, replaced by a sense of hope and gratitude for the present. The flood, though a devastating event, had ultimately paved the way for a new beginning, a chapter filled with love, laughter, and the enduring strength of human connection. It had brought together a family, bound not by blood, but by the shared experiences of loss, resilience, and the unwavering belief in the power of love to heal even the deepest wounds. Winter arrived, blanketing Willow Creek in a pristine layer of white. The farm, nestled amidst snow-covered fields and frosted trees, exuded a sense of tranquility, a haven of warmth and contentment amidst the icy grip of winter. John, Emily, and Lily had settled into a comfortable routine, their lives intertwined like the threads of a well-worn tapestry. The days were filled with shared chores, laughter echoing through the cozy farmhouse, and the comforting presence of Maggie and her pups, their fur now thick and fluffy against the winter chill. Evenings were spent gathered around the crackling fireplace, sharing stories, playing games, and basking in the warmth of their newfound family. Lily, her imagination ignited by the winter wonderland outside, would often weave fantastical tales of talking animals and magical adventures, her voice filling the room with childish wonder. John, his heart overflowing with love for his adopted family, cherished every moment. He watched Emily with a tenderness that belied his years, his eyes reflecting the depth of his affection. He delighted in Lily's boundless energy and infectious laughter, his role as grandfather a source of immense joy. Maggie, her once troubled spirit now at peace, basked in the harmony that surrounded her. She watched over Lily with a maternal devotion, her presence a constant source of comfort and reassurance. Her pups, now fully integrated into the farm's rhythm, continued to assist with the daily chores, their loyalty and affection a testament to the enduring bond they shared with their human family. One snowy afternoon, as John and Emily were decorating the farmhouse for the upcoming Christmas holidays, a sense of nostalgia washed over John. He thought of his late wife, Martha, her laughter echoing through the halls, her presence still palpable in the familiar surroundings. "Martha would have loved this," he murmured, his voice tinged with a hint of sadness. Emily, sensing his melancholy, placed a comforting hand on his arm. "I think she'd be happy for you, John," she said softly. "Happy that you found love and laughter again." John, his eyes meeting hers, nodded slowly. "You're right, Emily," he said, a smile gracing his lips. "She always wanted me to be happy." He looked around the room, his gaze settling on Lily, who was gleefully hanging ornaments on the Christmas tree, her laughter filling the air. He felt a warmth spread through his chest, a sense of gratitude for the unexpected blessings that had entered his life. The flood, though a devastating event, had ultimately opened his heart to new possibilities, new connections, and a renewed appreciation for the preciousness of life. It had brought him Emily and Lily, two souls who had filled the void in his life with love, laughter, and the promise of a future filled with shared joys and cherished memories. As the snow continued to fall, blanketing the farm in a pristine white mantle, John felt a profound sense of peace and contentment. He had found his home, not just in the familiar surroundings of the farm, but in the hearts of those he loved. And in that moment, he knew that the future, like the freshly fallen snow, was filled with endless possibilities, a blank canvas upon which to paint a new chapter, a chapter filled with love, laughter, and the enduring strength of family.